It breaks my heart. I am so proud of the girls. There are a handful of girls now who are suing their state's attorney general and the high school sports governing body that has allowed this to happen because of their discriminatory policies that exclude women from the women's category. Cannot believe this.
I have never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA. A few weeks ago, I made this video highlighting how it appears Brittney Griner said bleep white girl after fouling out in a game against Indiana Fever, the team that Caitlin Clark plays for. Some people like Jamel Hill, former ESPN host, says that no, she didn't say bleep white girl. She says bleep whack call. To which she then went on to call me a grifter for even pointing this out, but besides the point. You can watch and make up your own mind as to what it appears.
Riley Gaines just dropped a nuclear bomb on Brittney Griner and the entire WNBA establishment. After Griner's controversial comments about Caitlin Clark got swept under the rug, the former Olympic swimmer stepped up and said what everyone was thinking. She didn't hold back, and now the league is scrambling to control the damage. Do you think Riley Gaines was right to call out both Brittney Griner and the WNBA's obvious double standards, or should she have stayed out of basketball drama? The WNBA has never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than itself. A few weeks ago, videos surfaced of what many believe shows Brittney Griner saying some pretty inflammatory things about Caitlin Clark after fouling out in a game against the Indiana Fever. While some apologists try to claim Griner was talking about the referee's call, the timing and body language tell a different story.
Fox News, I ain't never seen this lady a day in my life. Why'd y'all hire this woman?
The USA basketball chair actually said it would be irresponsible to put Caitlin Clark on the U.S. women's Olympic basketball team, all while putting Brittney Griner on the team. I think with the extreme controversy that she brings.
Let me jump in, Riley, because you say it a lot there. I'm not sure what you mean by the controversy that Brittney Griner brings to the game. I mean, that's kind of not fair to say without explanation.
Well, I mean, I think given everything that happened overseas, given that she was put in jail, I mean, the controversy is certainly there, whether we want it there or not.
Not her fault and wrongly accused. Let's be fair. That's Riley. I like you a lot too. That's not right. She was wrongfully accused. That is not fair to bring that up. So we're gonna delete that. Okay, let's you and I continue.
She literally tried to tell Riley Gaines that Brittney Griner was unlawfully detained. What are you saying? Fox, get this lady off y'all show.
Riley Gaines wasn't about to let this slide. When the mainstream sports media started doing backflips trying to spin this story, Gaines stepped up and delivered a reality check that has the entire league shaking in their boots. What makes the situation so explosive is that Gaines is coming from a position of moral authority that's impossible to dismiss. This is someone who has firsthand experience dealing with unfair treatment in sports. She's a swimmer who was forced to compete against biological males in women's competitions and had the courage to speak out about it when others stayed silent. Gaines knows what it's like to be attacked for telling uncomfortable truths, and she's been vilified by mainstream sports media for defending women's sports and standing up for fairness.
Thursday night, Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played. Indiana Fever is where Caitlin Clark plays. Atlanta Dream is where Brittney Griner plays. Now you tell me what it looks like Brittney Griner is saying here. For a little bit of context, this was in the fourth quarter after Brittney Griner fouled out against Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever would go on to win by 5. Now I'm going to tell you what I think she said. Let's play it back. Looks to me like she is saying trash and then calling Caitlin Clark a bleep white girl. Just a reminder, this is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white. It's because she's a good player. It's because she's the best player. Now, imagine if Caitlin Clark said the inverse of this. It would be reprehensible, condemned, and understandably so. You've got all of these individual players. You have sports commentators, people like Ryan Clark, who constantly tout of the racial tensions that exist in the league, when in reality, they are the ones perpetuating and amplifying these racial tensions with their anti-white hatred for Caitlin Clark.
When Gaines saw the WNBA protecting certain players while throwing others under the bus, she recognized the pattern immediately. Her intervention came at the perfect time, right after the WNBA had spent time and resources investigating completely false claims against Caitlin Clark fans while ignoring real controversies caught on video. The brilliance of Gaines' response cannot be overstated. She took to social media and absolutely torched Griner with surgical precision. She didn't just call out the apparent comments. She reminded everyone of the context that makes this whole situation even more ridiculous. The United States government literally traded a dangerous arms dealer to get Griner back from Russia, and this is how she repays that sacrifice. Victor Bout was literally called a merchant of death because of his role in international arms dealing. This was a man who helped fuel conflict around the world, and the United States traded him for Brittney Griner. The idea that someone who benefited from that level of support would then turn around and make derogatory comments about another American athlete is pretty stunning. Gaines's point about imagining if the roles were reversed is absolutely devastating. Can you imagine what would happen if Caitlin Clark had been caught on video making similar comments about Brittney Griner? The media would be calling for her head. Sponsors would be dropping her left and right. The WNBA would probably suspend her indefinitely. But because it's Griner making the comments and Clark receiving them, suddenly everyone wants to play the, well, we can't really tell what she said game. The double standard is so obvious that even casual observers are starting to notice. What's particularly brilliant about Gaines's approach is how she's connected this incident to the broader problems plaguing the WNBA. She's not just criticizing one player for one moment. She's exposing an entire organizational culture that prioritizes protecting certain narratives over basic fairness and accountability.
What Griner says, there is one way to find out. Ask Brittney Griner. However, no one has done that except for Outkick. It's been over 2 weeks since Griner said this. Instead, the WNBA was investigating a bogus race hoax made up by Angel Reese about Indiana Fever fans. And I say bogus because they found no evidence that supports Angel Reese's claims. So we at Outkick applied for media credentials to cover Brittney Griner's team, the Atlanta Dreams, game on June 6th, to which, shocker, they denied us. We've never had trouble getting media credentials with any professional sports league in the past, but wouldn't you know, now they suddenly have very limited space, which is total baloney. They just want to suppress any sort of uncomfortable inquiries from media. Regardless, we at Outkick are going to keep asking the tough questions, the questions that people want the answer to. And if you do call yourself a reporter or a journalist from an outlet like ESPN or any other sports outlet for that matter, and you have access to these settings and you're not asking those questions, you're really no reporter or journalist at all, at least not one.
When a media outlet Outkick tried to get media credentials to ask Griner directly about the comments, the WNBA denied their request. That's when Riley Gaines really let them have it. She pointed out that no one has actually tried to get answers from Griner herself except for Outkick. Everyone else in the sports media is content to speculate and make excuses. But when someone tries to get to the truth, the WNBA blocks access. The fact that Outkick was denied media credentials for trying to ask legitimate questions about the incident is absolutely damning for the WNBA's credibility. This is supposedly a professional sports league that depends on media coverage and fan engagement. But when journalists try to do their jobs and ask basic questions, the league shuts them out. Gaines highlighted this perfectly when she noted the hypocrisy of the situation. The WNBA will investigate phantom claims against Caitlin Clark fans that turn out to be completely false. They'll issue statements, launch inquiries, and make a big show of taking unsubstantiated allegations seriously. But when there's actual video evidence of one of their players potentially making inflammatory comments about their biggest star, suddenly they're too busy to investigate. Speaking of Fox News, Gaines absolutely destroyed the WNBA's credibility with one devastating quote. "I've never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA." She then broke down exactly why the league's behavior is so hypocritical and damaging.
Good morning, Brittney. I'm Bill Roden from ESPN Landscape. It's really great to see you. It's good to know the prayers have been answered. The question, you've always represented so much throughout your entire career about access and, being able to do stuff. And I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but there are a number of states who are aggressively moving to prevent transgender athletes playing. And I was wondering, again, I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but in terms of on your radar, where is that? You're going to have a tremendous platform, but where is that going to be on your radar in terms of advocating for, athletes, all athletes, transgender athletes, to be able to play?
Oh, I mean, that ranks high on the list of things that I'll be fighting for and speaking up against. Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are or like it's just all eyes on them. I think it's a crime, honestly, to separate someone for any reason So I definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed for sure.
The timing of Gaines's intervention is also perfect. This came right after the WNBA had spent time and resources investigating completely false claims against Caitlin Clark fans. So we have a league that will mobilize to investigate fake controversies, but won't address real ones that are caught on video. Even more embarrassing for the WNBA is how Gaines pointed out the involvement of ESPN's G. Hill in trying to provide cover for Griner. Hill apparently claimed that Griner didn't say what many people think she said, but instead said something else entirely. But as Gaines noted, you can watch and make up your mind as to what Brittney Griner appears to be saying. That's the perfect response to these attempts at gaslighting. Don't tell people what they're seeing and hearing. Let them watch the video and decide for themselves. The fact that prominent media figures are trying to reinterpret obvious audio and video evidence shows how desperate they are to protect certain narratives. What makes this whole situation even more ridiculous is that it would be so easy for the WNBA to handle this properly. All they have to do is apply the same standards to everyone. That they're going to investigate unsubstantiated claims against fans. They should investigate substantiated claims against players. If they're going to grant media access for some stories, they should grant it for all legitimate journalistic inquiries. But instead of taking that straightforward approach, they've created a situation where their hypocrisy is on full display for everyone to see, and Riley Gaines just turned up the spotlight and made sure nobody could miss it.
A lot of people are talking about the Olympics, but not for the right reasons. So let me shed some light into a story that not too many people are talking about. I'm sure a majority of you know who Riley Gaines is and who is Brittney Griner. So Riley Gaines laid into Brittney Griner for kneeling during the national anthem. You don't have to sing or anything, but you need to show some respect for the country that saved you from a Russian gulag. True. If y'all forgot, Brittney Griner was a 32-year-old that was arrested in Moscow on February 17, accused of entering Russia with a vape cartridge containing cannabis oil, which is illegal in Russia. She was sentenced to 9 years in Russian labor. Obviously, this was a whole political thing. This was immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine. However, America fought for her and got her back in a one-on-one exchange with another prisoner. But that prisoner is one of the biggest arms dealers ever, Victor Bout. So you bring something illegal to a country, that country arrests you, and then America does everything to try and get you back here just for you to kneel during the national anthem?
You don't have to sing or anything, but you need to show some respect for the country that saved you from a Russian gulag. True. If y'all forgot, Brittney Griner was a 32-year-old who was arrested in Moscow on February 17th, accused of entering Russia with a vape cartridge containing cannabis oil, which is illegal there. She was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian labor camp. Obviously, this was a whole political thing, immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine. However, America fought for her and got her back in a one-on-one exchange with another prisoner. But that prisoner was one of the biggest arms dealers ever, Victor Bout. So, you bring something illegal into a country, that country arrests you, and then America does everything to get you back here, just for you to kneel during the national anthem? That's the broader context of this controversy, and it makes Gaines's intervention even more important. Caitlin Clark has been the best thing to happen to the WNBA in decades. She's brought millions of new fans to the sport, filled arenas across the country, and generated more positive attention for women's basketball than any player in history. But instead of protecting and celebrating their biggest star, the league seems more interested in appeasing players who resent her success. They're willing to investigate fake controversies that might make Clark look bad, while ignoring real controversies that might make other players look bad. This backward approach is exactly what Riley Gaines is calling out. She's pointing out that the WNBA is committed to self-imploding because they're actively working against their own interests. They have a generational talent who could take the league to new heights, but they're more concerned with protecting the feelings of players who can't handle her success. Gaines also understands something that the WNBA seems to have forgotten. Fans aren't going to tolerate obvious unfairness indefinitely. The new audiences that Caitlin Clark has brought to women's basketball aren't going to stick around. They feel like their favorite player is being treated unfairly by the league itself. The swimmer's background gives her a unique perspective on these issues. She's seen how sports organizations can betray their own athletes in the name of political correctness or narrative protection. She's experienced firsthand what it's like to be thrown under the bus for standing up for basic fairness. So when she sees the WNBA engaging in similar behavior toward Caitlin Clark, she recognizes a pattern and isn't afraid to call out. That's exactly what happened here, and the league's response has only proven her point. The denial of media credentials to Outkick is particularly telling because it shows the WNBA's strategy for dealing with uncomfortable questions. Instead of addressing issues head-on, they simply try to prevent anyone from asking about them. It's a strategy that might work in the short term, but it's guaranteed to backfire eventually. Riley Gaines just accelerated that timeline by bringing national attention to the WNBA's selective enforcement and media manipulation. Now, everyone knows that the league denied access to journalists who wanted to ask legitimate questions about a controversial incident involving one of their players. The most damaging part of Gaines' criticism might be how she framed the WNBA as an organization committed to self-imploding. That's not just an insult. It's an accurate description of what we're witnessing. The league has a golden opportunity with Caitlin Clark's popularity, but they're squandering it by creating unnecessary controversy and showing obvious favoritism. What's particularly effective about Gaines' approach is how she's connected this specific incident to broader patterns of behavior. She's not just complaining about one video or one denied media credential. She's exposing a systematic problem with how the WNBA operates. The fact that Gaines felt compelled to get involved in basketball drama shows how obvious and egregious the WNBA's behavior has become. This isn't someone who has any particular stake in basketball politics. She's a swimmer who has become a prominent advocate for fairness in sports more generally. But when she sees an organization engaging in the same kind of selective enforcement and narrative protection that she's fought against in her own sport, she's not going to stay silent. And thank goodness for that, because the mainstream sports media certainly wasn't going to hold the WNBA accountable. The video evidence of Griner's comments speaks for itself. But the league's response to that evidence is what really exposes their priorities. They could have addressed the situation transparently, investigated fairly, and moved on. Instead, they chose to circle the wagons and protect a narrative that doesn't even make sense. Riley Gaines just shined a bright light on that failure of leadership. And now the entire sports world is watching to see how the WNBA responds. They can either learn from this criticism and start applying consistent standards, or they can double down on their hypocrisy and prove Gaines' point about being committed to self-destruction. Based on their track record so far, smart money is on them choosing the latter option. But at least now, thanks to Riley Gaines, everyone will know exactly what they're doing and why it's wrong. The most telling aspect of this entire controversy is how it highlights the WNBA's misplaced priorities. Instead of capitalizing on the unprecedented popularity that Caitlin Clark has brought to their sport, they're more concerned with protecting players who seem determined to undermine that success. Clark is in her second year as a professional now, and she's already transformed the landscape of women's basketball. But rather than embracing this transformation, certain elements within the league appear to resent it. And the WNBA's leadership seems more interested in managing those resentments than protecting their most valuable asset. This is exactly the kind of organizational dysfunction that Riley Gaines has become expert at identifying and calling out. She's seen how institutions can become so captured by certain ideologies that they lose sight of their basic mission. In the case of the WNBA, that mission should be promoting women's basketball and supporting female athletes. But when the league investigates fake controversies while ignoring real ones, when they deny media access to journalists asking legitimate questions, and when they fail to address apparent misconduct by their own players, they're failing in that mission spectacularly. The beauty of Gaines' intervention is that she's forced everyone to confront these contradictions. She's made it impossible for the WNBA to pretend that their selective enforcement and obvious double standards are anything other than what they are, a betrayal of the principles they claim to uphold. The league now faces a choice. They can acknowledge these problems and work to fix them, or they can continue down the path of organizational self-destruction that Gaines has so accurately identified. Given their response so far, it seems clear which direction they're heading. But thanks to Riley Gaines, that choice is now being made in full view of the public. The former Olympic swimmer has ensured that the WNBA's hypocrisy can no longer be hidden or explained away. She's delivered a reality check that the league desperately needed, even if they're too stubborn to accept it. The broader implications of this controversy extend far beyond basketball. It's a perfect example of how institutional capture can lead organizations to act against their own interests. The WNBA has a once-in-a-generation opportunity with Caitlin Clark's popularity, but they're squandering it to appease internal factions that seem more interested in ideology than success. Riley Gaines has seen this pattern before in her own sport, and she's not going to stand by and watch it happen again without speaking up. Her courage in calling out this dysfunction is exactly what the situation required, and her moral authority on these issues makes her criticism impossible to dismiss. The fact that the WNBA tried to suppress questions about the Griner incident only makes Gaines' point stronger. When organizations start trying to control information and limit accountability, it's usually because they know they can't defend their actions on the merits. Gaines has forced them to confront that reality, and their response has only confirmed her assessment. The WNBA really does appear to be committed to self-imploding, and Riley Gaines just made sure everyone can see it happening in real time. Riley Gaines just delivered the reality check that the WNBA desperately needed. Her fearless call-out of Brittney Griner and the league's double standards has exposed the corruption everyone could see, but nobody would address. What's your take on this explosive situation? Let me know in the comments below. Smash that like button and subscribe for more truth bombs.